Welcome to the Scaling My Startup podcast by Narrative Labs. Today I'm joined by my esteemed guest. He is Raphael Afolayan, and he is the CTO of MyTherapist.ng. Raphael, it's really wonderful having you here with me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here as well.
Fantastic. We had a few technical glitches, but I'm glad we made it. I'm glad we made it on. So
Right.
let's talk about your background, because I know that you're a full stack engineer. So I want to talk about how long you you practiced as a full stack engineer, and then what made you make that transition from being an engineer to being, because you're also the co-founder of MyTherapist.ng, aren't you, as well as the CTO. So what made you make that leap from being an engineer to now being a co-founder in a rapidly growing startup?
I would say that I've had my fair share of challenges when trying to access basic things from Nigeria. And I've been doing this I've been doing engineering for since 2018. So I think that's about 7 years now, professionally, of course. And I've had the luxury of building products for a lot of startups both home and abroad. And it's something that I found really interesting, because you can craft something out of literally nothing, and it becomes a product that hundreds of thousands of people use. And I found a lot of satisfaction doing that for others, right? I've worked in teams, I've worked on solo projects, but sometime in 2020, we had COVID. We know how depressing the COVID era was. As if that was not enough, we had the NSAS protests, which happened
Yes.
shortly after lockdown was over, I believe. And that period in itself was one of the most challenging periods of my life. I dropped out of school. I decided to, quit a lot of things that I loved doing. I quit my job. I was not myself at all. And this was because I was going through personal challenges and I needed help. Now, where to get help, I wasn't sure, but I knew that the kind of help that I needed involved talking to an expert, talking to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And getting that help from my locality in Nigeria, in Lagos, wasn't looking really easy. At first, I decided to try out BetterHelp, which is a startup that provides a service in USA. And
Yes, I know BetterHelp. It's very expensive, isn't it? BetterHelp.
Yes, it was really expensive, but the weight of the issue with me then was something that was so heavy that I overlooked the cost, right? A 1 hour therapy session on BetterHelp was about 2 months of minimum wage here in Nigeria as at then,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I knew how expensive it was, but I did not mind, even though I still acknowledge that I was privileged, right? Me deciding to ignoring the course was from a place of privilege. I did not mind, having to do that, but I knew that I needed to get help, and I was desperate about getting help. Now, it became unrealistic for me to continue using a platform like BetterHelp, because during that time period as well, the CBN came with regulations. You are not allowed to spend, I believe, more than $50 on international platforms, right? At first it was 50, then it became $10. I think 2 years ago it became $5, and now it's like literally zero, right? So even though I could afford to pay, I could not, right? Because the government, made it difficult for me to pay for an external service like that. And the other problem that I encountered was me not being able to relate with the therapist that I was assigned, right?
So they didn't really understand the cultural context of things in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, right? And then there was the language barriers. Yes, we both spoke English, but there's a way that this person talks too fast, and I'm like, slow down. I'm not an American. I'm not British. Can you tone it down to my level, right?
Yes,
so there were
yes.
social cultural differences. There were communication gaps, that made it really, really difficult to thrive in therapy, in the approach that I went through. And I decided to consider getting localized help. Where to find help locally, I wasn't sure. I tried and tried to look for a platform, and I got a few people who were concerned about me, refer me to um, therapists here. But it was really, really difficult because these were not therapists that I felt comfortable with. Right? Of course, they did have the tag of a therapist, but I had no choice in it, and I didn't feel comfortable, with opening up to just anyone. Right? I
Understandable,
eventually
yeah.
found a platform, a very popular platform here in Nigeria that connects you with volunteer mental health professionals, and I got speaking to
Hmm.
one. 10
Hmm.
minutes into the therapy session, I got to find out that this person wasn't in any shape or form a therapist.
Oh wow, you're kidding.
Yes,
You are
yes,
kidding.
yes. In
So
fact,
what was so the person was just like like a doctor?
not even a doctor, right? What I found out that was really, really shocking was this person apparently was a fashion designer that
No way, you're
believes they had
kidding.
the
No, I
gift
don't
of
believe
talking
you.
to
No
people.
way.
Yeah, they believe that they had the gift of talking to people, and so they labeled themselves a therapist.
That's terrible.
Yes. And getting to find that out was really disheartening for me. It was really disappointing because I was in a very vulnerable place, and I did understand the sensitivity of the issue. I know that therapy itself is allowing someone to get into your head. Oh, at least that was what I felt it was. And if this person wasn't skilled enough, wasn't knowledgeable enough, it's a science, right? And you won't let a carpenter perform brain surgery on you, right? Because the person
Exactly. Yeah,
doesn't even
that's
know what
true.
the hell they're doing. So I
They're
didn't
doing, yeah.
feel comfortable with it, and it was clear that I was going to either be used as a talking point for someone's, personal story, and I decided to opt out of it, right, and give up my
So can I
search
interject
entirely.
something here? I love what
Yeah.
I like what you said, because I feel like when I think of therapy in Nigeria, therapy is very personal, and you obviously need to get very vulnerable in order to get the results that you want to get out of therapy, and most people's fear is exactly the scenario that you described, talking to somebody maybe who isn't properly certified, or who is certified but who isn't discreet. And you know how it is in Nigeria, somebody always knows somebody who knows somebody, and you don't want your personal information being out there as gist, or just gossip or whatever. So
Right.
I think that's one of the main things I want to talk about later on as we continue, because
Yeah.
that is definitely a big concern for many people who are seeking to access mental health services in Nigeria and in Africa.
Yes, exactly. It was really, really difficult for me to find help, so difficult that I eventually gave up in my search. Luckily for me, about a few weeks later, I did get sent a tweet by someone, a therapist, who was offering free consultations for people. And I felt, you know what? Let me look into this person. I did a background check on them. I saw that they were certified. I saw that there were a lot of people who had testimonials, beautiful testimonials about working with this person. And so I decided to give it a try. I booked a session with this person and had what I want to believe therapy should feel like for everyone, right? It was so revealing to me that I came out of the first session, which is usually, not the case for most people, but I came out of the first session feeling really, really relieved that I was able to let some things off my chest and get, some advice. So I booked more sessions with this therapist, and along the line, I started to remember how difficult it was for me to get help. And I did have
Hmm.
friends in my circle there who were also looking, for some form of mental health support. I had people who lost loved ones. I had lost a loved one, and I
So
didn't know how
sorry
to
to hear that.
process the grief, right? And I had people who shared the same problem that I shared. And I felt, you know what, I think something should be done about this. This shouldn't be the norm for most people. And I've seen a lot of people in my peer group, a lot of people in my circle, results to things they they shouldn't even consider just because they didn't know how to process their emotions, process what was going on in their environment, right? And I
Mm.
thought to do something about it. So I went back to the therapist that I booked. I spoke to
Sorry, I
her.
have a question before you
Yeah,
tell me about the therapist. I think it's
yeah.
really interesting that you identified that this gap exists. And I think in terms of mental health and also men, I also feel like it's more difficult for men to speak out, in terms of processing emotions, because in our culture, men are meant to be strong and men are meant to be stoic in a way. And so yes, it's harder to find outlets for men in particular. I've noticed in general to process and to sort of be able to work through their emotions. I love that you mentioned that. And I also want to talk about the connection. So when you were thinking, oh yeah, there's this problem, I've, been able to successfully get the help I need and an empathetic and licensed professional to help me. But how did you go from that to like, oh, startup, light bulb moment? This could be a startup. This could be a business. Did you do research? Did you ask people around you if they thought it was a good idea, or were you just so convinced by your own experience that you just decided to go for it?
Um, for me, it wasn't a startup idea in any form. It wasn't a startup idea in any form. The idea that I pitched to the therapist at that time was, if she had like information on some of her colleagues that were qualified, right? That we could put up somewhere and anybody who wants help can just go there and talk to them, right? People that she could vet personally, because I did know that while I was able to form a connection with her and be vulnerable, there are other people that, might not find her, quote unquote, as their spec of therapist, right? In fact, I've had people
Right.
who tell me, you know what, I want to talk to a therapist, but I only want to talk to a man, right? I only want to talk to a man who can understand me. And then some people come and say, you know what? I only want to talk to a married therapist. I don't want someone who's single coaching me about how to, do better in my marriage. There was a lot of how do I put it? Connection points that people wanted addressed, right? And I myself, of course, I was lucky to have my connection points addressed, but I was quick to see that what worked for me might not work for other people. So I reached out, should we just, can we just have a list where people can come, see therapists, see if they are single, married, if they are male, female, see what they look like, right? Because some people want to talk to like really elderly people, right? I've had a couple reach out and say, you know what, we want to talk to a therapist, but we only want somebody who is above 50 or who is above
Okay.
60, somebody who is elderly and can, coach us the way that we want to be coached,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And yeah, and that was it really. So we did, think about that and said, you know what, maybe let us do this. And she reached out to some of our colleagues. We had an Excel spreadsheet, right, where
Okay.
if we saw anybody that needed a therapist, just send them in spreadsheet. Oh, this is a list of some therapists that you can check out and talk to them when you're
Sorry.
ready.
I just want to interrupt. So you had, at this point, you had someone else, your current co-founder, I'm assuming, that you were working on this with.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay. Sorry, what's his name?
my
Just so we can know him as well. What's
yes,
his name?
yeah. So my therapist was Adedoyin Ajayi. She
Okay.
was my therapist, and we decided to found MyTherapist.ng together.
Okay, okay, fantastic, fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. So once you started, generating the spreadsheet and putting down names of different therapists and all of that, at this point, had you gathered any funding? Did you have any sort of financial backing, or was just you were just bootstrapping it at this point?
Yeah, so we did not have any serious thing to spend on at that time, right? So there was no need for funding or anything. Google Sheet was free. All we did was, reach out to some people, put their names down, and send the sheet to people who we felt needed it. And that was it, right? Along the line, we could see, at least from online trends or from conversations happening online, that a lot of people wanted what we had built, right? Even though as at then it was just a spreadsheet. So what we felt we could do was to also, as much as talking to a therapist is meant to be a proactive measure, we wanted to also provide how would I put it? Precautionary measures, right? So if you're
Okay.
feeling stressed, you shouldn't feel stressed in the first place, right? So we decided to put together some resources. So Leadoing does that regularly. So she puts together threads on things, how to spot a narcissist, how to spot emotional blackmail, etc. And we decided to put these resources all in one place so that people who needed access to it could get it. And at that point, it was becoming somewhat serious because people were, showing a lot of interest in this, and people were reaching out, of course, to this therapist. But there
I
was
have,
no way for us to
sorry,
track
I
it.
have two questions about, because I
Yeah,
think anybody who's watching is going to be really, really interested, because I'm just like, I'm gripped by your story. So I want
yeah.
to know how, for example, when you put out the resources, I want to know two things. How were you able to track the number of people that were accessing the resources? And how were you able to almost like publicize what you were doing so people, your potential clients who needed these resources would know that, oh, these resources are available. If you go to whatever website or whatever platform, you can download these resources.
Yes. Initially, there was no way for us to track it. We put it out of goodness of our hearts, quote unquote. Right? We weren't even sure people were going to use it at first. Right? But it was a question of, you know what, let's just have it there. If anybody wants to use it, then you have somewhere to go. So now, at the point where we started to put out resources, articles, and trends on how to, manage your mental health, etc., we saw how people were engaged with it. We saw how people were so happy to have something like that, and we decided to take it a little more seriously. That was when we said, you know what, maybe let's make this something official, right? People are asking for this. Why not give them something, a bit more structured? So we decided to look for a name to call it. And it was really, really easy. All that came to my head was my therapist. let's call it MyTherapist.ng. And the name itself was born that day. I think that was around very, very early 2021, between January and
Okay.
February. Yeah,
It's such a
so
good name. It's a very catchy name. So I'm like wow that it was available on the web, because it is so memorable and so easy to,
right.
yeah, easy to sort of remember.
Yeah, so that was it. It was so easy to decide on. We didn't want to overthink it. We didn't want to overcomplicate it. The idea was when anybody hears the name, they should instantly know what it means, right? Although we've had some people hear the name and ask us, "Oh, is it physiotherapy? Can I get a massage? Is it for massage therapy and so on?" But the majority of people could easily understand what it was for. So we
Yes.
bought a domain name, and we put all of the resources together in a website. And every week we write blog articles on various mental health topics, preventive measures.
So, sorry, where would you write the articles? Would you write them on like Facebook, in like social media platforms, or did you have a? Was it on the MyTherapist.ng website?
Yeah, so it was strictly all on the MyTherapist.ng website. It was strictly all on the MyTherapist.ng website. What we had was a blog powered by WordPress, and that was where we put out all of the resources. It was nothing more than that. But we were able to start seeing analytics that at least in a month, we're getting about 30, 50 people come, read the resources that we put out. And this was even
Mm.
without us putting it out there on social media, right?
Okay, so this was
The
all like organic traffic just from Google.
Yes, 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 exactly. So this was organic traffic from Google. When we put out articles, for example, on stage fright, it's funny how people search for a lot of these things, And while there's a lot of resources out there, right, most of them are not resources from people from our side of the world, right?
That's true.
So they are not
Yes.
resources that a lot of people relate to. You can't, there are some things that you see in our articles that let you know that yes, this is someone who gets, gets me as a Nigerian, someone who gets me as an African, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were able to relate to that. So we eventually did put out a newsletter where we'll tell people, you know what, if you like this article, you can subscribe and we'll send you the next one to your mailbox. So we did that, and while we're doing that, we're also doing Twitter Spaces. So we do
Okay.
Twitter Spaces, bring people to come talk on various mental health topics. These were counselors, people willing to share their personal experiences, and it became so serious that sometimes we post the spaces and would have thousands of people
Wow.
join the
That's amazing.
conversation. Yes,
And
and
did you market the spaces, or you just literally put it on your Twitter and people just joined from
so
seeing
we
it
didn't do
on?
any external marketing.
Okay.
Luckily, my co-founder did is influential on Twitter to an extent, so she has a
Okay.
very loyal following of
So you had a
people.
built-in influencer. You didn't really have to market.
Exactly, right. So it was like a match made, right? I had the technical skills, she had the professional knowledge, and had the influence as well to help get the word out. So it, it was like a no brainer. So yes, we did do Twitter Spaces. From there, we would have people ask, who can I talk to? Can I talk to? Oh, go on the website. You see a list of resources. If you want to speak to a therapist, check this spreadsheet. You are going to be able to see therapists available and so on. And while that was happening, we're having a lot of people ask for more. Oh, I tried to reach these therapists. They didn't respond to me and so on. And we told them, okay, you know what? We'll contact this therapist on your behalf and tell them to and give you a date to go and see them and so on. And
Sorry, Raphael, I
there
have a
were
question because
also,
this seems
yeah,
like a lot of work. Sorry to
it
interrupt
was a
you.
lot of
I want to
work.
know if you had a team at this point, if it was just you and your co-founder, or if you had like team members who were able to field some of these inquiries and just assist with the volume of questions that were coming in.
Yes, for back then it was just me and David. It was just me and
Okay.
David. So we eventually did hire a graphic designer. Tolu is his name,
Okay.
who would help us design things that we put on social media. So whenever we would make resources, we would ask him to help, generate a cover graphic for us, and
Mhm.
that was it. So
Okay.
when we saw how serious people were taking this, we decided to make it a more integrated solution where, you know what, we are covering every aspect of mental health. You just come to us, we'll handle everything. So we decided to make it official and turn the idea into a startup just because of the traction that we're getting.
Sorry, I want to interrupt you here just to say that I love the way that you validated your product market fit before you went full throttle and launched it into a startup. Because I think a lot of people just think, oh, I have this problem. Other people must have the same problem. And then they launch into it maybe without as much research or without as much validation. But I can see, through every step of the process until it became a fully fledged startup, there was a lot of like, you could see that there was a market demand for what you were building, and it's from there that you decided to grow and scale. So I think that is really interesting. And would you, just a little detour, would you advise others who are building maybe SaaS products, startups, physical products, to do the same sort of journey that you and your co-founder Adedoyi did, in terms of validating that there's enough demand before moving ahead?
Yeah, I like to think critically that there's no surefire way to validate an idea, right? Sometimes it's your gut, right? And your gut could be wrong sometimes as well. Your gut could be wrong. You could be misled. Even when you think you have numbers, the numbers could be numbers of people who who have interest, but not people who really want to pay, right? There's a lot, but I think if you put it all together, you put the numbers together, look at it from a third party perspective, and not do it solely on your conviction as a fan that, oh, if I put this out there, people would use it, right? You should get proof first of all, get evidence that this would work, and then if you do that along with every other thing combined, I'm pretty sure it will be difficult for you to have it wrong.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for speaking on that. Okay, so let's get back on track with your story. So when you decided that it was time, when you and Adedoyin decided that it was time for MyTherapist.ng to move from, just being a blog and Twitter Spaces to a full-fledged startup company, how was that? Did you at that point go about raising, or did you decide to just bootstrap it? And yeah, what was that journey like?
For us, we did know that raising would eventually be a part of our journey, because we know that we're able to quickly see that this is something that will involve a lot of resources, right? But what I believe we were able to quickly convince ourselves is not to get ahead of ourselves. We would do this in the simplest way possible and scale when we can, or scale when we should. So fundraising wasn't even in our top 10 list of things to do. Right? It was among the list of things that we'll do eventually, but we wanted to, make sure that we validated this first of all. We built the simplest version of this, have it help people, and then when we are convinced that it's the right time to scale with more finances and all, then we will go about raising money.
Okay, fantastic. So I think you're very different. I think you're very different because in this landscape, and I talked to a lot of founders, and a lot of people are always like, yes, we knew we needed $250,000 to start with, and then we went to meet this angel investor or this VC firm. So, raising I think is kind of fashionable, and people always have it at the forefront of their minds that even if you just have an idea that you need to raise because you need to, try and get it off the ground that way. So I think that you and I did are quite unique in a sense in that way, in that you didn't just start thinking, okay, we're going to go talk to this angel investor. You still want, even though it was already pretty validated, I think, from the Twitter spaces and from everything else that you mentioned leading up to it becoming a proper startup, but you still wanted to validate it even more. So how are you able to validate it even more to be sort of 100% sure that this was something that could stand and that could be a proper business that people would pay for? Because I love what you mentioned about, you have to be sure people will pay for it, because sometimes people just say, oh, this is nice. Or yeah, when you try and do your market research, I think sometimes there can be a bit of politeness where people just want to encourage you, but they may not necessarily, bring out their hard-earned money to pay when it's time for the transaction to happen. So how were you able to validate that you had enough people willing to pay? And from that point, how did it grow? So I want you to tell me about how you got funding, how you got even like media attention and PR, just to get it to where it is today.
Yes. I would mention that the ultimate validation that we had was when we had our first booking. Right? It happened right here. So I was here in the house. I brought in two of the engineers who work with me to come, let's do something hackathon style and let's launch this. Right? We had delayed launching the product. In fact, the product itself was supposed to
So
be launched.
it was an app, right? Just so we can be clear.
Yes.
An
So
app.
we had
Okay.
MyTherapist.ng as a website with resources and all, but we knew that for the platform to be fully functional, it needed to reside on a mobile device for people to carry around and access at the comfort of their home or offices or anything, right? And we did want our therapists to be able to not to use an app, right? We wanted our therapists to always be on a desktop computer, because for you to use a desktop computer, it means that you are well seated, you are most likely on a table, and it's different from a phone that you can carry around, right? So you can take your phone to the
Yes.
toilet and use it, right? And no one would know. But for our therapists, we insisted that they use a desktop computer to of course give us the confidence that they are well seated, they're in a serene environment, they are most likely on a chair and table, right? so the therapy session can flow even more smoothly. But for our users, we felt a mobile app is the way to go, right? I think yesterday and 2 days ago, there has been this buzz on Twitter and LinkedIn that if you don't have 250,000 users, you shouldn't have an app, right? I've seen a lot of influential people talk about it, even today as well, right? And my response to that, no shade to anybody, is your solution is not everybody's solution, right? It has to be,
Right.
you need to know what is most useful for your users. You need to know what is most useful for your users. You need to know the kind of experience that you want them to feel. Do you want them to have to go to a browser and then type in XYZ before they can use your service, right? Or do you want them to just be able to wake up and tap a button and be able to use it, right? So that was the experience I wanted our users to have. And so we decided to make it a mobile app from the start, of course. And
Okay.
yeah, so we did have this hackathon to finish the app by fire by force because there was this uncertainty as to whether we had done the right thing. We knew that what we
Okay.
had done was helpful, but we were not sure if it was good enough to be put in the markets, right? So we would
Okay.
have a launch date
Okay.
and say, oh, you know what, we can put this out by October. October would come, but we're not fully confident, right? We feel, oh, maybe we should add this feature first of all before putting it out there. We would add the feature, something else will come. Are we sure we want to launch this yet? What if people don't like it? So it was a mentor of mine that spoke to me. I had gone to him to tell him how confused I was, how difficult it was for me to decide on whether or not we should do this. And what he said was, put it, put it out there. If people use it, fine, right? If people don't use it, keep on adding features, right? If you put it out there, it doesn't mean that you can add that you can't add features anymore, right?
True.
Put out what is called an MVP. Put it out. Put the simplest version of it out, and every other thing will fall into place as time goes on. And so
That's good
finally,
advice.
yeah, I made a checklist of the things that I wanted version 1 to have. And I brought in my engineer. So one of them lived outside of Lagos. I brought him to my apartment, put him in my guest room. We're doing this together, right?
He was
I brought in
living.
my
It was like a full time working
yes, yes,
on this
yes,
app. Yeah.
exactly. So walk 1 a.m., 2 a.m., of course, and the day that we put this out there and we sent out a list, a newsletter to our email subscribers that the app is finally here, right? We had amassed about 300 plus subscribers before we put out the app. We've had people who had enrolled for the wait list, right? Who were waiting for us to put it
Hmm.
out there. And when we sent it out, the first day we saw about 6 people downloaded. Next day, 10 people downloaded.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
and in under a week, we had about 90 plus people that downloaded the app.
Wow.
And
Wow. That's like you had traction right off the bat.
right, yes. And I think about 8 or 9 days after we put out the app officially on Play Store and made it publicly available, somebody booked a therapy session with one of our therapists.
Oh, that's
Right?
exciting. That's very
Yeah,
exciting. Mhm.
yeah. So I remember being seated on this chair, on this couch then, and my backend engineer just shouted from the room, "We have a booking! We have a booking!" And then, of course, we were so excited. We were dancing for like hours, right? And then on the day of the therapy session itself, I think the person booked like 2 days ahead. So
Mhm.
on the due day when the session was supposed to hold, um, I remember I was seated on this same table. There was a plate of yam and egg on my
You
table,
even
right?
remember the food that you had? That
Yes,
must have been
of course I did.
a very
Now,
exciting
the
moment.
time came. The time came, and we're of course waiting to see how it would go. Right, we're waiting to see how it would go, and something went wrong. Something
Oh
went wrong.
no.
Yeah, something went wrong.
What went wrong?
The therapist apparently was in the UK, and the client
Okay.
was here in Nigeria. So we didn't know that the therapist was in the UK because when she put allocation as Nigeria, she used a phone number that was a Nigerian phone number and everything, right? So we didn't even
Okay.
know such a thing was possible, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that happened was the client reached out to us. Hey, I'm in the room, but I can't find my therapist. That
And
was
wait, at that
when
point, I just want to get, how did you feel inside when this was going on? Like, what was going on in your mind? How are you
I
feeling?
was worried, I was
Of
nervous, I
course.
was anxious as well, right? And we did so, and the backend engineer that was with me then is one of the most talented minds I know, right? And I've worked with people. I mean, I've worked with engineers from YouTube, Spotify, etc. Right, but in terms of how well I rate him way above any other person that I've worked. So he was like the
Okay.
smartest person I knew, right? And I was here. The both of us we were looking at it. We couldn't figure out what was happening. We couldn't figure out what was happening. So
Mm-hmm.
what I did
Mm-hmm.
was to place a phone call to the therapist that, oh, someone is waiting for you in the therapy room. Do you need some help or assistance? And it was then that I found out that she was 1 hour ahead, I believe. And that was something that we didn't account for. We didn't account for time zone conflicts and all. We had tried to dot our I,
Right.
cross our T's and all, but the time zone conflicts. So what we had to do immediately was um, change the time manually, right? So we put both of them like on the same time zone. Yeah. And about 15-20 minutes into the session, they were able to connect with each other, and we
Okay.
of
So they were
course had to
actually able
explain
to
this.
have the session on that day.
Yes, 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 yes. And then
Great.
when the therapy session was completed, payment was made to the therapist automatically, like we programmed it to do. The client came
Wonderful.
and then gave a review on the app, and we were so excited. We were here like dancing with plates of food. We were here dancing with plates of food, you know. And then of course, yes.
I
So
can imagine the
that
relief and the
was a
joy
victory
that
over
it's,
for us.
yeah, it was getting off the ground. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm glad it was that you were able to scale through that challenge, because I'm sure like the panic that you must have felt when the client said, oh, the therapist is, not in the room and all of that
Right,
must have
yeah.
been massive. Must have been massive. Wow. So I think what you guys have done and are doing at MyTherapist.ng is amazing, because I feel like I want to talk about how you've been able to convince Nigerians who are very privacy conscious. I know growing up, I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this, where your parents will tell you like, oh, if there's anything going on with you, don't tell anybody, just come and tell us, or just maybe tell a very close friend, but you just need to try and manage it, and maybe go to church and tell your pastor. Your pastor will pray. There's very much that thought process that you go to church for counseling or whatever, but to actually go to another person who's not in a of the of from the religious institution, because you're going through a tough time, or like you said, when you had lost somebody and all of that. How have you been able to get people to come around to the mindset that, oh, it's okay to go to a professional who's been trained? This is a line of work, just like being a doctor, like being a nurse, like being an engineer. This is someone's whole profession, that they've studied, and that it's safe to let them into your own personal space and to give them your own thoughts and information, essentially. What has that been like? I'm really intrigued to know.
For me, I would say we didn't sweat too much on that because
Oh,
at the forefront of what we were building, education was one of our strongest pillars, right? In fact, we started by educating people, helping people learn about these things. And so I think it made it easy for us, for people to be able to say, oh, I've learned about this, and I think I want to get help, right?
okay.
And the next question on their minds will be, how do I get help? There wasn't a
Okay.
lot of ways to get help except through what we had built. So it was really easy to like channel or to funnel people to use the product from learning about, things that they might have, right? So we wrote things to explain how depression works, how anxiety works, and so on. And so it was easy for people to connect with the product because now they had a bit more understanding and they understood how what we've built or how therapy itself can be of help to them.
Okay, so what was your main like customer acquisition channel in terms of knowing who to funnel that education to and getting people who
First, it
needed
was
it
Twitter
to
Spaces. Twitter
Twitter
Spaces
Spaces?
then was, I think, our biggest marketing channel. It was organic. We would host spaces, people would come, and it's funny how a lot of people have a lot of things um, bottled up, and the Twitter Spaces that we did, some of them, I think, every other episode was for you to come and rant, right? Something going on at work, come and rant about it. Somebody do something to you
Mm,
that's pissing you off, come, come rant, come share it with the world, right? And for that, it
okay.
was good for a lot of people. A lot of people were able to express themselves, and of course, we would have spaces where we would bring in experts to come talk about somewhere our licensed therapists, others were general mental health experts, other people wanted to share their story and all. So, and I would do this, and people would feel, you know what, I think I love how this person explained this concept. I would want to talk to them to learn more about XYZ condition,
Okay.
right? And
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So the age group of the users of the app, were they mainly, because it sounds like it was Twitter Spaces, was it mainly younger people who were sort of 35 and below, more like Gen Z and younger millennials, or were you also getting an older demographic as well?
for us, with Twitter Spaces, most of our users were Gen Z and people that would term as millennials, people in their
Okay.
20s, and up to people in their early 30s and all, right?
Okay.
And what that did, I believe, was open the door for a much larger audience. In fact, one of our first 10 paying users was someone who wanted to speak to a therapist. I believe she had found us through Google search, right? And she wanted to speak to a therapist for herself, right?
Okay.
She spoke to a
Okay.
therapist for herself and then came back again to book that she wanted to book a therapy session for her daughter, who was a
Um,
young teenager and was antisocial and needed, some guidance and counseling and all, right? Who also wanted to talk to a therapist. And she came back again to book for her mom, who was, I
oh
believe, a
wow.
70-year-old woman, right? So we had to do a lot of technical accommodation there because we had built a platform to be for people who are tech savvy, right? So we saw that, oh, you know what? I think we have to make this easier to use for older people as well. So we
Hmm, hmm.
simplified the language, we made the login and sign up process pretty smooth. So you could download the app and in 2 minutes you are talking to a therapist if you want. Right.
Fantastic. Well,
So
that's really, really fantastic.
that was
Wow. Wow. So
what we built and made possible.
okay, fantastic. So now, would you say most of your users are still in that Gen Z demographic, or it's more spread out across different age groups?
What I would say is more spread out. It's not spread out evenly. A very large
Okay.
chunk of our users are still people between 17 to 30, right? I think that's about 60% of our base, right? And
Okay.
when you expand that from 17 to 35, that accounts for about 80% of our user base.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. And what is the how affordable is it? I've not asked that question actually. How much is it for a therapy session on MyTherapist.ng?
So from the start, cost was one of the things that we decided to solve for people. And the only way we could do that, which was ironic in a way, was to let the therapist set their pricing. So we decided to
Okay, the
let
therapist sets the
therapists
price.
set
Okay,
their
interesting.
pricing. And what I think that did for us was to make it democratized. So there was some sort of competition among the therapists. So we had therapists who wanted more clients. So obviously that would make them bring the pricing down, right? So when we started, you could talk to a therapist for as low as 2,000 naira per session.
Wow, that is
Yes.
low.
Yes. Now it's a bit higher. So the lowest therapist I can book right now is about 5,000 naira, right? But if you're a student, you can book a therapist for as low as I believe 1,000 naira per session.
Oh wow, and how
Yes,
that's for like an hour session?
yes, for a full hour. Talk to a therapist for a full hour for as low as 1,000 naira. That's something that we've made possible and is still possible till date. So we had some therapists that we
Wow,
spoke
kudos to
to
you.
and
Kudos to the entire
explain how.
My Therapist. Oh, Raphael, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can
Okay,
you hear
froze for a
me?
second. Okay, great. Now, I was just saying
Yes.
kudos to the entire MyTherapist.ng team. That's really fantastic because it
Right.
literally means that it's accessible across the board to everybody, and to the people who are most vulnerable and who need it most, which is great, which is really, really great. Okay, so I want to talk about how when did you start getting outside funding, because you're like, up until now you're like, no funding, no funding, no funding. When did the funding come into the picture, and why did you feel like you needed to get funding at the point in which you got it?
Yes. For us, we wanted to be able to build without pressure. First of all, that has been one of our biggest beliefs. We can build without pressure, and it's still my belief till date that funding in itself is only going to accelerate things, right? And what most founders, I believe, don't understand is that funding accelerates whether good or bad,
Mm,
right? So if you have a good structure and you're on the way to success, funding is going to accelerate that process for you, right? If you have a
mm-hmm,
bad
mm-hmm.
structure and you are eventually on your way to failure, funding will accelerate that for you. So if you're supposed to fail in 3, 4, 5 years, funding would help you fail in 1 year, right?
Okay.
If you are
Mhm.
going to succeed in 3, 4, 5 years, funding could help you succeed in 1 year. So it's two sides of the coin that I believe most people overlook. So for us, we wanted to build and be as lean as possible. We don't hire people that we don't need. We don't spend on things that we don't need to spend on, right?
Mhm.
Even though at some point we decided, what, let's put more resources into this thing. So that was when we decided to fundraise, and our fundraising strategy was mainly through grants, not the VC route, and not by choice. Anyways, not by choice. It was because earlier in our journey, we decided to see what it would look like to fundraise, and we got a lot of no's. No's because I mean, one feedback that I believe I got to date is they were not sure whether the product would be received well in this part of the world,
Okay.
right?
So there was that sort
Um,
of unconscious bias, should I say, or the stigma or something like, yeah, along those lines. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. And we also had actually we had a lot of boxes that we needed to have ticked, and our strategy was to go back to the drawing board and make sure that we fix these things before we fundraise, and we did. But our fundraising strategy changed from the VC route where we'd have to give up equity to funding that comes with less pressure. So we're lucky to have been funded by a couple of programs that have given us resources, not just money. We've gotten access to key people that have been a very, very vital part of our mission. And I believe in the future we would go the VC route, right? I think
Okay.
from later this year we should be gearing to expand into other African countries, and we do know that that in itself is going to take a lot of resources, a lot of money to make happen. Right now, we support a couple of Anglophone countries already. So we have users using the platform from Ghana, from Cameroon and Togo, right? But we
Okay.
we know that there's much more that we can offer to the rest of Africa. We know that people in South Africa, people in Egypt, in Tunisia, in French-speaking African countries can be of can benefit from what we've built. So of course, expansion
Definitely.
is really really big in the picture right now for us. So we would fundraise properly through the VC route if we have to.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much for clarifying that. 'Cause I think that's, when people are growing, they're looking at different types of funding. Like you said, there's grant funding available, there's business loans, there's angel investment. And I love the fact that you touched upon the pressure that comes with VC funding because VCs are expecting outsized returns. They literally want 100x. So, that is a lot of pressure. If you get money from a VC and they want 100x, you have to be at the pace, you have to be
Of
growing
course,
very quickly, and you have to be able to be on that path to getting those sorts of returns. So thank you so much for clarifying on that point. So now I want to talk about your relationship with your co-founder and how you've been able to segment your roles in order to work together successfully. I know that you're the chief technical officer, the CTO. Can you talk to me about her role and how you've been able to work together in a way that's friction free? Because people always say that co-founder relationships are sort of like a marriage, and you have your good days, you have your bad days. So how have you been able to navigate that?
um, yeah. So I'm the CTO because that's what I want to focus on, right? I also stand in as the CEO when I need to. My co-founder is the CEO, so they doing manages operations and helps cover the professional aspects of things. So of course we serve to customer bases, the users, as well as the therapists. For these therapists, we've become a source of income for them. We've been able to, elevate their practice. That sounds like ChatGPT language, but yes, we've been able to elevate their practice, help them become, people with more experience and so on. So they're doing overseas all of that while keeping the team happy. What I do is focus on the product, make sure that the products are solid as it should. And that goes without saying that yes, frictions would always occur, right? It's marriage. Any marriage where everybody's happy for 100% of the time is not a marriage, right? So yes, but what I believe has worked for us is the shared goal that this has to work, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
We categorize ourselves as a vital service for a lot of people. For people, we are the lifeline between getting help and giving it up and ending things, right? We've been, I mean, I know the impact that we've had on the lives of people. I know people who have called us in tears, just say thank you for, for letting me be able to access this, right? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to go about it, but I found you guys and I'm no longer thinking about, suicide or something. That's that that I believe keeps me going. And I believe the shared agenda that this has to keep happening for people. People
yeah,
need to still have a solution. People still need to have um, a lifeline, right? I think that has
most
kept us
definitely.
going. So if we need to disagree to agree, that happens, obviously. But that belief that what we're doing is not negotiable, I think, is what has kept us strong up to date.
Okay, thank you very much for elaborating on that. I think it's important for people to know the dynamics of how a co-founder relationship can work. So are you guys integrated with any other HMOs at the moment? Like, are you integrated into AXA or any of the popular HMOs that we have here in Nigeria?
Yeah, so we do have a partnership already signed with a couple of HMOs already, right?
Okay.
In fact, we we launched our B2B service in November last year to cater for HMO clients and for business clients. And we've been able to, of course, provide what we do to both businesses who want our services for their employees, as either as benefits or for employee assistance programs. We've been able to do that for businesses. And for HMOs, we've integrated with one or two HMOs already, and we're
Okay.
in talks with a lot more because we know
Okay.
that HMOs are a key distribution factor for us to get our solution out there, right? So
Most definitely. Yeah.
a lot of
Okay.
them.
Can you give me Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you give me an idea of the number of users that you have currently? You don't have to give me an exact figure, but just maybe like.
So we did have a goal last year to be at 10,000 users. Last year, I think December 22nd, we crossed that milestone officially.
Oh, well
Right.
done.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's a lot. That is a lot.
For this year, we have a milestone of 100,000 users. This is March. I'll leave you to guess where we are.
Can I guess? If I'm
Huh?
right, will you tell me?
I would not.
Oh, you would. Okay. I'm still gonna guess. I think you're probably at maybe 28 to 34,000 at the moment. Just it's not an educated guess. It's just what my
Right, right,
it's just
right.
what I'm guessing. But yeah, maybe I won't know. You said you wouldn't tell me, so we'll
Well,
just
you're
have to leave it
close.
at
Well,
that.
you're
But that's what
close.
I
You're close.
feel. That's where I feel MyTherapist.ng is like. I do see a lot of talk about it, especially on LinkedIn, online. I do see it being championed as a key mental health resource. So you guys have done, really wonderful work. It's really, really fantastic. And I want to just come on to talking now a little bit about two things. First of all is competition. I know that there's other similar startups that have popped up in this space. So what are your thoughts on that? How are you navigating that as a team in terms of just keeping your reputation as a market leader? And then I want to ask you about mentorship as well, because you mentioned having a conversation with one of your mentors earlier that helped you to get yourself in the right mindset to think about how to grow and scale. So I want to talk about how important mentorship is to you and is to sort of the business as a whole.
Yes. So on the issue of competition, what I like to see people building, what we're building, I see them as co-innovators rather than competition, right? Because us being a market leader is just a title that's not going to help anyone, right? I know that what we're building is really essential, and people need all of the help that they can get, right? So there are other people who are playing in the same field to also provide the same help that we provide them. Then yes, that is very, very much welcome, right? My focus is to make sure that we're delivering the best care to our users, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so focused on any outside perspective. What I want is to make sure that what we're building is helping people and it's helping people not just today, for generations to come. Yeah.
Fantastic. So a legacy business
Right.
of impact. I love that. I think it's very important as well. So you mentioned, like I said, your mentor or your mentors. I don't know how many you
Yes.
have, and how important has having mentors been, and have you been able to get the right mentors? Because people always say like, "Oh, I asked this person to mentor me. I just reached out to them, and I didn't. I don't know them. Maybe I saw an article they've written, or maybe I've been following their journey from afar, and I've just reached out and said, "Will you be my mentor?" So I want to know for you, is that how gone about it, or has it just been sort of more organic in terms of you've met people along your journey and they've inspired you and they've been able to help guide and shape what you're building?
Yeah, for me, mentorship has been really vital because I've had people walk through waters that I want to walk on, right? And it's so helpful to have someone tell you, oh, this is what I did, or this is the mistake I made. Don't make the same mistake, right? Just I believe in January, I had my former boss. I used to work with him about 2 3 years ago, and he's the founder of one of the biggest fintech companies in East Africa, right? I spoke to him about our plans to expand to East Africa. And the first thing he did was to tell me that's a great idea, but this is what you want to be careful of, right? Don't expand
Okay.
because, oh, you want to expand, you want to expand. It's good for news, it's good for PR, it's good for investors, quote unquote, right? If you expand before you are ready to expand, you are going to bleed out quickly, right? There were a lot of things that gave me that not that I wouldn't have seen, but I think I would have seen them too late, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
instead of having to make that failure myself, right, I was able to learn off his experience, and of course, refine my own strategy to know exactly how I wanted to do that. So yes, mentorship is invaluable, right? There's no amount of value we can place on mentorship, especially from the right people, right? We have a lot of people who pose as thought leaders who really do not have anything to offer when it boils down to it, right? So yes, for me, I've been able to identify the people that I believe are of value to me and to my journey. And I've been lucky, really, really lucky that a lot of them have believed in what I'm building and they're willing to support me in it. Right. As to a strategy for getting mentors, I think it all happens spontaneously, either through networking or either through network. So people say, oh, you know what? I think you to this person. Let me do an intro for you and this person and so on. It becomes a good conversation to have. But yes,
Yeah.
I've had people who have come to me for mentorship, and if I were to give any advice, I would say that you should make sure that you have something to offer, not money or anything. But some people want to mentor you off of the satisfaction that, oh, if I give this person guidance, it's going to succeed, right? And that for some people is enough satisfaction to want to agree to commit their time and resources to you, right? But if you're not showing that you can succeed, right? It's not going to be a good bargain for them to, oh, I don't know if this guy is going to succeed or not. Let me just give him my time. No, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to waste their time. They want
time
to
is money,
invest their time
essentially.
in something that they know that would yield returns. Maybe not financially or anything, but at least even if it's for them to have that gratification that, oh, I was a part of this person's journey, right? That should be something that you can prove to your mentors that you're capable of giving to them.
Okay. Thank you so much. I like the way that you described adding value to your mentor, because oftentimes, yes, it's very like, I'm not saying it's selfish, but people just think, oh, I want this person to mentor me because of their wealth of knowledge and their experience and but they're not thinking, okay, how am I also being of service, or what am I also, it's an exchange really. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that. So lastly, I want to talk about thought leadership, and how, because you kind of mentioned, you touched on it just now, and how important that is to you. Because I know, I see you posting on LinkedIn, as I'm also posting on LinkedIn, and I want to talk about how that has sort of impacted the way people view you as a founder, people view the company, and how important it is as a founder to sort of let your voice be heard and to put yourself out there at conferences and other things, just to establish yourself as an authority in your space.
My perspective on that has changed over the years. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I was the building silence person. I just want to work and make my money. That's all I want. I don't care if anybody knows me or not, right? And that has been my. But along the line, I started to notice that it was easy for people to, assist you if they know what exactly you're doing.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. A sealed mouth, I believe, is a sealed destiny. I'm not sure how the saying goes, right? And one thing that I've learned in this journey is that you need a lot of support, right? And support can come from unexpected places, but it's easier to get support when your arms are open, right?
Right.
You need to show people that yes, this is what I'm doing, and of course, if out of the kindness of the heart, they're able to support you. Oh, I like what you're doing. I want to feature you in XYZ. I like what you're doing. I want to provide XYZ. Do you need XYZ? And so on. So it's been easy. It's been easier to get that form of support when I know that I'm sharing my journey as it goes. Right? I'm not leaving people to figure out what I'm doing. All right.
Yes.
There's no profitability in mystery, right? Whether I do it mysteriously or whether I do it publicly, what's going to matter at the end of the day is that I succeed with it, right? And it's easier to succeed when you have other people supporting you, right? I do know that too many cooks, I think, spoil the broth, but when you have the right kind of people supporting you, and again, it's up to you to be able to filter out who you want to support you, right? there's somebody that's going to say, I want to support you and I must support you by force by fire. You don't have a choice in it. Right. So I found it easier to just approach that mentality, to approach things with that mentality that I should put what I'm doing out there, push myself out there, and of
Mm-hmm.
course I know that people are watching, right? And my
Yes,
belief is
definitely.
that the right people are watching and the right people support me when they need to support me.
Fantastic. I think that's very
Yeah,
true. I think being visible in your work and talking about your wins, even talking about, you know, your successes, your failures, your vulnerabilities,
yeah,
definitely helps people to resonate more with you, with your company, to know what you're doing. And yeah, you're doing a great job. I follow you on LinkedIn, like, you know, and I love the recent
yeah,
article you wrote actually about being at a conference and about I think it was something to do with stutter, because I was like, oh wow, I think we can all relate to being vulnerable, to being in those situations and to being in those rooms. Like, you pray to
yeah,
be in those rooms, you want to be in those rooms, but sometimes different things come up, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's, you know, just being having an
yeah,
anxiety attack, whether it's being shy, because I'm a presenter, but as well as a startup founder, but I'm also very shy, and people don't believe me. Sometimes when I have to go to conferences and moderate panels, I get very shy, you know. So I was really
yeah.
pleased that you talked about that, because I could definitely relate to what you were saying. So before we go, I actually want to ask you something about something you mentioned at the very start of the interview about when you dropped out, and then obviously you went on to start this company, MyStartup.ng. But how did your family take the fact that you were dropping out and you now said, "Oh, I want to start this business to, you know, help people get easier access to mental health resources in Africa"? What was the reaction of your, you know, your loved ones, your family, your parents, and, you know, those around you?
For external people, it was, oh my God, you're going to be a failure. Right? For external people, it was that way. But I think what made it different for me was that I I had evidence that I was going to succeed. I don't know if I've
Okay.
succeeded yet, right?
No, well, you're
But
definitely up there.
I'm getting there, amen. But yes, I think I had evidence that I was going to succeed, right?
Okay.
I think I made my first million at about 18, right?
Oh,
And that was about like a $10,000 contract that I did as a software engineer, right? So
okay.
um, it was easy to like take that feedback to my family, and then I will support you. Don't worry. Yeah,
Yeah, when it's
it
working,
was
it's
good to
working.
get support, right? But the support that I had came with flaws, right? That okay, I know you want to do this. I know this is what you're passionate about, but I want you to go back to school along the line. That was the clause
Okay.
that I was given, right? And even when that clause was like, it was my godmother there calling somebody I believe from the Ministry of Education to she had a meeting with her. Then she just called me. I just had to come. And then she told me to explain what I was doing to this person. So I did explain, oh, this is what I'm learning. I've been able to do this. I have an internship with hotels.ng. This is what I want to learn. This is what I'm passionate about. I can already do this. And she was impressed, right? She was impressed. And she was able to vouch, for to my family that, okay, if he's serious with this, then I think it should be good, right? So
Okay.
that
Okay.
was how I was able to pass that. But I still get calls to the Oluma Pada, which is like, when are you going back? When are you going back
Mhm.
to school? But I've told them to calm down. I will do that at my own time.
You
Whether
can
I'm
go back
30 or
anytime. People are
40.
like 50, 60 going back to school, you know? So let me not put my mouth in the matter, but it's just my opinion that it can happen anytime. That's just, you
Right.
know, my own
But
two
yeah,
cents. But no, but I think I'm sure they're very proud of you and, you know, what you've achieved and still achieving. Like I said, you're still young, you're still in your 20s, and, you know, what you're building and the number of people, like you said, you've been able to help and impact through, you know, you and your co-founder through this startup, MyTherapist.ng. Well, Raphael, thank you so much for making the time to come on the Narrative Labs podcast and to talk about, you know, I think we got quite personal, like, you know, you talk about your experiences, your own challenges, and how this has turned into a solution that is already pan-African, and I'm sure going more global very, very soon. So thank you so much. So last words are, what advice would you give to somebody who is where you were back in 2020, who is building something maybe and doesn't have as much conviction or isn't really sure how to grow and scale it, but they're in the very, very early idea stage, what advice would you give that person?
My advice would be, if you do it and it helps one person, then you've done well,
Hmm.
right? And if you can help one person, it can help 10 people. If you can help 10, it can help 100, it can help 100, and so on, right?
Yeah.
You just want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, not because you want to be seen. Oh, that's a startup founder, that's a startup CEO. Anybody can go
Mhm.
to CAC websites today and enroll their business and call themselves a CEO. If that's why you're
Yeah.
doing it, or if your purpose is to quote unquote get investor money and live a soft life, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right? If you're doing it to help people, to solve problems for people, then it's going to be hard for you to get it wrong.
Mm, I love that. Thank you so much. And for anybody who's watching or listening, who would like to connect with you, what is the easiest and best way to connect with you? Is it LinkedIn, or is there any other way?
Yeah, LinkedIn, email, anywhere. So I think my initials everywhere is D Afolayan. That's my surname, THE
Okay.
Afolayan. So on Instagram, my handle is D Afolayan. On LinkedIn, linkedin.com/slash D Afolayan. Instagram, D Afolayan. Everywhere, I think it's just D Afolayan. And I
Okay.
respond. Usually, I respond like really, really quickly, but I eventually respond. So far, you're not asking me for money because I need money myself. But yes, I respond.
All right. Good. So if you want to reach out to Raphael, if he's inspired you, even if you just want to tell him thank you so much for sharing your story, please do reach out to him, but don't ask for money. He's given you that disclaimer already. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Raphael. It's been wonderful having you on, and I'm definitely very inspired by what you've achieved. Thank you.
Thank you too for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.